Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm presuming my screen is visible to you all. And over the next 10 to 15 minutes, I'm going to give you a quick overview of my thoughts on this topic. And I'll keep it in two parts. The first part would be a generic update on my thoughts. And in the second part, I will give you some specifics on Maruti Suzuki, how we are and where we are in this journey. So with this, let me start. Just to give you an overview of the overall process, I'm sure since morning you have been hearing other speakers, but in my opinion, I think one of the most important thing is the starting point. Really, all of us need to ask ourselves the question, what are we really trying to solve? Which means we need to have an honest assessment of the current state analysis. It's important that we baseline correctly so that it gives a clear picture of where our capabilities are, what are our limitations, identify the gaps for the technological upgrades, process improvements, and skill enhancement, and support the strategic planning process, prioritizing areas that need immediate attention. So to summarize, I think the first important point is be very clear on what are we trying to solve and have a very clear baseline of the current state. With this, the next aspect of it is having a very clear digital architecture. I think sometimes we underestimate these parts in the transformation journey, but to have a proper data-driven decision framework in the organization, it's very, very important to have a very clear digital architecture, like the systems of records, our ERP landscapes, ensuring comprehensive coverage of business processes and data collection, the data warehouse architecture, how the centralized repository should be looking like for storing and managing large volume of data. The next question comes, how do we structure the data for maximum insights? Implementing systems to capture data at the source for accuracy and immediacy. Both timing and accuracy, both are important. Then the third thing becomes aligning the management and information needs, wherein we need to work closely with the management, with the leadership to understand the expectations and try to align the whole framework with the leadership expectation. So these are some of the important building blocks of the journey in my opinion. Moving on. I think the next part which comes is identifying the milestones. Now that we have baselined it, we have a broad framework on the architecture. It's important that we prioritize it into the short-term, mid-term and long-term goals. Do some pilots to test the water and improve the capabilities. And then in the midterm, go towards more and more advanced data analytics tools and process optimization. Another important call out here is that the data and process goes hand in hand. Unless we have a standard process, it's very difficult to get into a mature data-driven organization or data-driven framework. So how do we do a proper enterprise-wise process framework is also very, very important in the digital transformation journey. Moving on to some of the building blocks of it, I think particularly in the context of the finance function, it is important that we perform the following tasks. We look at data integration and standardization by integrating and standardizing the data from multiple sources and systems. Increase efficiency and productivity by automating as much as possible the data processing and reporting tasks, and this is where the process dimension also becomes important. Enhance transparency by making dashboards which gives a real-time view of the financial performance. Various data visualization and communication aspects needs to be looked into. And of course the data collaboration and a constant feedback mechanism wherein we keep improving based on the user feedback. I think these are essential building blocks of the whole data analytics milestone journey. Now in this slide, I'm going to talk about a very, very important aspect which is on cross-functional collaboration. I think depending on what you call these teams in your organization, between the think tank, which is your strategy team or your business development team or your marketing team, whatever way you call it, the finance team and the IT team, these three teams become very, very important part in the whole data automation journey. Like how do we bring the long-term goals and market positioning into the financial analysis, the budgetary considerations, and then with the IT team offering the various technical expertise and the implementation capability. So the key here is develop a unified approach to integrate data-driven strategies and align on business objectives and data priorities. If one has to look into the interface, and the right side of the chart is just a framework of the interface, you can see there are quite a few interface area which is there. I will not get into the details of it, but each function has a dimension on which they look at the whole thing, because this will come with an investment, choice of tool, choice of technology, aligning with the long-term strategy, and more, I think we have a common meeting point between these three functions, the more successful the process will be. Now, with this broad framework, let me deep dive into where Maruti Suzuki stands today as an organization, with the disclaimer that by no way we have reached a stage where we can call ourselves the most matured organization. Yes, we are at different stages of maturity, and over the next few minutes, I will give you a glimpse of a large manufacturing organization, how we are approaching this. So this slide is more a slide on the architecture. This talks about our various positioning of various things in the organization. So if you see at the bottom of it, what we call our SAP, because we are in SAP, the SAP digital core, the various modules within it. We also have a lot of legacy applications which are very fit for purpose, very mature. So we have a blend of SAP and our legacy applications, which becomes the system of recording, as if you can say. Then we have some advanced solutions. Primarily, the endeavor is to make it SAP++ so that it interfaces with the core ERP layer. So you can see applications as Ariba, Anaplan, etc., which are there, which are integrated with the core. These solutions help improve efficiency by automating and optimizing business processes. And on the top end of the pyramid, you have advanced use cases of predictive maintenance, factory automation, using various IoT, AI, ML, various mobility solutions, which enables us to go for this whole journey. There are various control towers which are built in the process for several departments and several purposes, because we are a B2C company, so we have a large customer base to interface with. So the point here is that, as you can see, it's an architecture, it's a holistic architecture, which one has to keep in mind when you approach this journey. Moving on, the endeavor and the journey which we are in is how to move from an ERP core now to a digital core. So as you can see, the mantra is simple: standardize, simplify, innovate, and embed the whole ERP core into a holistic digital core. For some of you, it may sound as too much of SAP, but that's the tool which we have used, and we are moving in that direction. So in this journey, there is of course the core. There are cloud-based platforms. There are digital platforms which are open to ecosystem and innovation oriented on cloud. This chart gives you an overview of the data flow across the processes and modules. So as you can see, that architecture has to be integrated, so various modules needs to talk to each other. So particularly if you see from a finance function perspective, there are interfaces with various modules. So this interface and a two-way exchange of data becomes very, very important if one has to really move into a data-driven decision-making module. So, and it's a block-by-block approach. No, right or wrong answer. Depending on your organization maturity, one has to choose the journey. But overall, I think this is the framework where we are and we are working on. Now I'll move to some of the challenges as we are in this journey. Of course, this journey comes with challenges. I think some of the challenges which we are incurred and we are still incurring, first is the mindset to align towards a standard platform. I think there is generally a tendency to kind of protect the tool where you are comfortable working with. So that becomes a general trend. The skilling has to be upgraded. I think this is a very, very important part, and I have a specific slide later on skilling. I'm going to talk about it. Sometimes lack of ownership, accountability, and synergy becomes an impediment in this whole journey. The endeavor really is how do you reduce the customization, move to more and more standard tools? How do you really speed up the business blueprint workshops whenever you are going for a transformation? And what is an aligned execution methodology? So these are some of the things which one has to keep in mind and which we keep in mind when we are in our journey. Change management, a very, very vital part of the whole thing, starts with the leadership commitment. Particularly, I have called out few functions here who become very critical in this. Of course, starting with the CEO, the CFO, the CIO, the CHRO. I think an alignment between all these four is very, very essential. A consistent leadership communication, aligning the common goals of digitization and ensure consistent communication is important. A collaborative environment, like I gave you the example before, to break silos. And then appropriate reward and metrics and KPIs where you both recognize and reward the right behavior as well as have a good way to measure and monitor the progress. Some insights on best practices. I'm sure, in your respective organizations, you are doing this. But just to recap, I think definition of problem and objective becomes very, very critical. Collecting and cleaning the data becomes very, very critical. Analyzing and interpreting the data rightly becomes very important. Communicating and acting on the data in a right way becomes important. I will spend a couple of minutes on this one because to my mind, this is a very, very important part in the whole journey, which is on skilling. I think one has to really assess, and we have done a very detailed exercise here and still in the process of assessing the current workforce digital readiness. So do various workshops to determine the existing level of digital competency within the organization, determine where the technical knowledge may fall short in supporting data-driven initiatives. The next thing is obviously to upskill through certification and training, implement training programs on data analytics, digital tools, technology adoption, encourage certifications in areas like data science, AI, machine learning to enhance the technical expertise. In-depth data science capabilities. If I give you a real example, both from my Maruti Suzuki as well as my earlier experience in Schneider, now finance team, the composition has started looking different. It's no longer a team of qualified CAs or CMAs or qualified accountants. You have a blend of engineers, you have a blend of data scientists in the team. And this mix is becoming very, very important if one has to go really deep into analytics within finance. So keep this aspect in mind would be one of my key messages out of this session, that you need to multi-skill and upskill the team and create expertise in data analysis, statistical modeling, predictive analysis, because especially for manufacturing organizations, now understanding the various dimensioning of the cost of goods sold and going deeper into it will give you better insights into the business. And as I was telling, broad-based the talent base. It has to be a blend of technical and commercial resource, because particularly if you ask me from a finance perspective, I think there will be two orientations. There will be domain experts, and the domain expertise will get deepened because the regulations are not getting easier. The second bunch of people will be people who can interpret and work with large volume of data. What will really, kind of keep reducing is the so-called Excel gurus who keep on kind of slicing and the dicing in the data with multiple pivots, multiple spreadsheets. I think that is the kind of talent which is going to shrink, and these two talents will be in demand from a finance perspective, if you ask my perspective. But the key message here is do invest in skilling if you want to make it a successful program. So that's broadly what I had from my side. I have few more slides, but I would stop here. Maybe one important message here is on the budget allocation. I think these kind of initiatives requires investment. So it's very, very important that it is aligned from the top, the budgets are allocated adequately, and the business cases are done appropriately, including a board level alignment where needed depending on the organization. The whole idea is invest wisely in data initiatives, don't over-invest. The key is really what not to do than what to do, because there is a plethora of tools which is available today which will give us choices, but a judicious use of that is probably what is critical today from a overall organization perspective. Some tips, I think always start with a question, use multiple data sources, the storytelling becomes important. So with this, I would pause here. I don't know whether there is a possibility of taking few questions, but I would pause here with this, my thoughts. And I'm not able to hear from the other side, so I will stop the sharing and request if the line can be opened from both ways.